Gary. So I got another question. What are the biggest gap in the current education and the needs for the future world? So in other words, what do you think should be added to the current education curriculum that might be crucial to our preparedness for the future?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's difficult because I have very little context to give you an informed answer, right? I did not grow up in the education system here in Hong Kong, and I'm also not a parent yet, which means I don't have kids who are in the education system. So I completely missed, right? So I have no context. So you have to excuse me because my answer may not be accurate. But here's what I would say. I think that in my time here in Hong Kong, that's 4 years, I have encountered some of the smartest, most capable young people and students that I have met anywhere in the world. But there is a pattern. And that pattern is that for whatever reason, most Hong Kong students I meet are kind of scared of taking risk. And I don't know why, and I imagine it has something to do with the culture or potentially the education. Now, again, the little that I know about the Hong Kong education system is that it is very Chinese, and what I mean that culturally, and what I mean by that is that there's a lot of memorization, rote memorization. There's a lot of testing as well, and I see every single year we talk to students and they go through their testing, and I've learned a lot about the testing regimen and rigor here in Hong Kong. I think education systems that are heavily reliant on testing to separate good students from, supposedly not good students, it means that everyone kind of does things the same way, and there isn't enough creativity taught, or there isn't enough space for students to be creative. And when I say creative, I'm not talking about the arts. Right? I'm not talking about painting and music and all these things. Those things, by the way, are excellent and wonderful. But I'm talking about the creativity that is necessary to properly learn, right? Giving you the space to decide, okay, if I need to go from A to Z, for you to decide how I'm going to get from A to Z. And give you the space to explore and make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes and then get back on the right path. I was fortunate. I spent my entire youth in the West, and I was part of 2 phenomenal education systems. And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that the Western education system is better than the Chinese education system. That's not what I'm saying. But I know that for my personality, I would have failed if I had stayed where my parents were born and raised, which is Taiwan, because that education system is very, very similar to Hong Kong as well. I think I would have failed. I'm really bad at tests. But I grew up in New Zealand and the United States. I went to high school in the United States and the university in the United States. And in both those 2 places, I had the opportunity to actually explore a lot and make a lot of my own mistakes. And I think that what that taught me was really the skill set of how to learn. And to me, that's been the best gift that education has given me. So based on my interaction, again, I could be completely wrong here because I have no context. But based on my interactions with some of the smartest students I've ever met anywhere in the world, I think the one thing that I would want for them is the willingness and the experience of making their own mistakes and exploring.
But you mentioned that in the Hong Kong education system, you think that the students may be not that creative and they are not able to take the risk. Do you think it may bother them to find some job in the global market? Do you think Hong Kong students is actually very competitive in the world?
I absolutely believe that Hong Kong graduates are the top of any generation when it comes to skill set. Right, so we have hired the majority of our company are local Hong Kongers, and they are spread out through the entire organization, from our newsroom to our finance team, to our strategy team, to our data team, to our product and engineering teams, to our creative teams. And we have some of the top talent in the world, in the global news business, here in our office in Hong Kong, from Hong Kong, I have also met some of the best technology entrepreneurs in the world here in the city. So absolutely, I believe that Hong Kong students can compete in the global marketplace. Absolutely. But get out of those boxes, right? Because I think the problem is that when Hong Kong students graduate, even if they have the ability to do many new like a lot of different things, they keep trying to fit themselves into what they think they're supposed to do next, right? And so there are very limited number of paths that they choose to take, but there's so much opportunity around the world. So you guys are the top of your generation. Absolutely, I believe that. Now go explore and figure out what options there are around the world.
Apart from the skills that students require, and then they need to know how to overcome their mistake and also try to become more creative. So, what are some of the new opportunities that you see under the current situation that students can try to grab the opportunity to equip themselves and become more competitive in the global markets?
And by current situation, Christine, do you mean the COVID-19 situation or just the world in general right now?
The world, yes, the general.
Okay. So here's what's interesting about, I think, your generation and your parents' generation. And I happen to be halfway in between, okay? So I feel like I can speak for both sides. Mm-hmm. I think the big difference is that in the parents' generation and then our grandparents' generation, or your grandparents' generation, I think there was a lot of new things that needed and could be invented, okay? And most of the things have already been invented, right? But your generation, you have an opportunity to perfect a lot of the things that have been invented. And that's really, really interesting. Because what that means is that you can look around the world and you can, in your daily life, identify things that can be improved, things that can be made better. You can look at the way that you, for instance, the way that you shop, or the way that you communicate with friends, the way that you learn, the way that you visit a doctor, right? The way that you bank and save money. You can look at all of the ways that you yourself live and then figure out ways to improve on that. And that is a new business. That is a new idea. That is a new innovation. So most of the things that we need in our life have already been invented, right? But now your generation gets to make everything just a little bit better, or maybe perfect it. I make it a lot better. And I think that that's really, really exciting. So I think that's where the opportunities are.
Mm-hmm. So before I ask the next question, so students, if you want to ask any question, just feel free to type in the chat box and I will feel free to help you to ask it. So the next question is, as you mentioned that you are the one that is between two generations, and also we are the one who have to improve the things that our older generation have invented. So what do you think the differences between two generations, and how can we actually help them to make the things better, and in order to keep the old thing continue and also keep the new things more creative?
Yeah, I think I like the second question better, because I think it's too easy for us to just say, you know, here's a list of reasons why two generations are different. I mean, every generation is going to be different. That is just human nature. Every older generation thinks that the younger generation have it easy, and every younger generation thinks that the older generation doesn't understand, right? That's always how it's going to work. And you guys are going to find out when you become parents, you're going to think the exact same of the next generation. But the second question is really interesting. How can you guys work to make the world a better place, to make those improvements that I'm referring to, without losing hold of what came before you? I think that your generation needs to learn how to listen and understand a little bit more. Now, here's why I say this, and again, I do apologize if I'm making big sweeping assumptions. But the reality is that you guys, this university generation right now, you were born into the world of the internet. right? You guys have never known a world without the internet. Me being that in-between generation, I did know the world without the internet, but I have spent most of my life living in the world with the internet. Your parents' generation lived a long time without the internet, right? Now, why do I bring up the internet? It's because the way that the internet has developed over the course of the last 20, 30 years has led to a generation of people who primarily use the internet to broadcast. Okay, again, big sweeping statement, I understand that. But that is the primary engagement mechanism on the internet right now. It is to broadcast. And what has happened with this broadcast generation is that broadcasting has generally meant me telling the world what I'm up to and me mimicking what other people are doing. Okay, that is a lot of the behavior that we see on the internet right now. And there is less and less time spent in what I believe to be high quality, elevating, thought-provoking discussion for the sake of understanding one another. Okay, we can see this take shape in the political world, where the world is becoming more and more polarized, right? Further and further apart. You can see this actually in governments. If you take a look at, for instance, the overlap of opinions between different political parties in most of the major countries in the world, United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, including, actually, if you look at the Hong Kong LegCo as an example, and what used to be an overlap of opinion between what we now know as the pro-government establishment or the pan-democrats, everything used to be much closer. They may disagree, but there are definitely many areas of agreement. Over the course of the last 20 years, it's gotten further and further and further and further apart. Now, for most of these governments around the world, the two opposing primary camps have no overlap, are completely separate. There's a gap in between what they believe. That is even more acute in the younger generations when they disagree. I actually think that if you guys want to improve the world, but still be able to hold on to the good of the former generation, there has to be a lot more time spent listening and understanding. And I hope that you guys don't think I'm lecturing, because that's not my goal. But it is something I think in the middle generation, I have observed from both sides. And it's not just you, because I do think the older generation also needs to listen and understand your generation more. But the onus is actually on your generation, because the older generation can't make much change anymore. It's up to you to make change. So hopefully both sides will listen and understand each other more, but it is up to your generation to actually make the improvement.